and welcome to Inner Circle Guidance. Today we're going to be doing a collective reading, but for those of you who are new to the circle, hello and welcome. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I post new videos every single day. And if you're looking for personal services or personal readings, I offer them through my website, innercircleguidance.com. Oop, that's interesting. I'll take that card just because I dropped the whole deck and I feel like that was the one on the bottom. But let's find out more specifically what the circle needs to know today. Okay, so Justice was the first card to fall out. We have the Four of Pentacles. We have the Three of Wands. We have the Two of Wands. We have the Three of Pentacles. Knight of Pentacles. Okay. The Seven of Swords on the bottom of the deck. Well, right off the bat, I am picking up on there's sort of a sabotaging energy here, but it's a sabotage of self. And the reason I say that is because a lot of the cards on the table have to do with individual self energy. The only one that's not in that sort of energy is the Three of Pentacles, which tells me that this self-sabotage affects your career because it's a Pentacles card. It affects how you ground yourself because it's an earth energy. And it affects the way that you communicate with other people. It affects the way that you feel you're perceived by other people. There's this sort of resistant energy here. And it's sort of a fear to step out of your comfort zone and a little bit of a lack of motivation I'm picking up on. There's also a little bit of this sort of like, you should do these things. You've been sort of told there's certain things you need to be doing and you kind of keep putting it off. So there's this sort of procrastination sort of energy as well. But since the Justice card first came out, and it was the first card to come out, and it came out in such a huge way where I literally dropped the entire half of the deck, I'm seeing that there is a major decision here and an understanding of balance that is sort of lacking here in your energy at this time. But I'm also seeing that this is something that's been an ongoing sort of process. It's been an ongoing bit of a problem here, this sort of self-sabotaging energy. A lot of you watching this are old souls. You naturally have an inclination to understanding and knowing certain aspects about spiritual enlightenment, about the laws of the universe, those types of things. So for me to tell you that when there is something in your life that you know is going to take you to the next level, it's something that you want even, but there's sort of this resistant, procrastinative energy to it, that oftentimes it's because that particular thing is something that's going to really elevate your soul to the next level. I can see you wouldn't be so surprised by that sort of energy. It's like, oh yeah, if it's not a, yes, I know that already, it's a, yeah, that makes sense based off of what I know kind of energy. But the problem is that some of you are struggling to define the line between that energy and the resistant energy that comes with something that's not meant for you. A lot of you have this major fear of not living up to your own expectation for yourself, of not fulfilling your purpose in this lifetime, of not accomplishing everything that you want to accomplish. And that is an old soul energy. That energy comes from having lived many lifetimes, having lifetimes where maybe you didn't achieve everything that you desired for whatever reason. You could have died earlier on in that particular life, or could have struggled with different problems and things, or different aspects of enlightenment and spiritual awakening that didn't get you on the mental space that you needed to be in order to achieve whatever it was. But because you're an old soul and you have that sort of energy though, it kind of confuses you, I think, sometimes, between what is and isn't meant for you in terms of the resistance level. So what happens is you ultimately need to gain a stronger connection to your intuition. And this kind of ties into the reading I did yesterday, which was about how sometimes you allow your fear of missing out to override your intuition. But I'm seeing that this is sort of a deeper problem of that is part of it, that some of you are impatient towards your goals, and you kind of are in this energy where you hear your intuition telling you something's off. Instead of heeding that and moving towards something that's in alignment, you sit in that energy and try to force it into being what it is that you want, which never works out in the way that you hope. It may work temporarily in certain situations, but long term, it always falls apart because it was not meant for you. That is part of the problem, but it's also sort of this disconnection with your intuition. For some of you, there's some sort of underlying thing here, and it could be limiting beliefs. It could be the way you were brought up. It could be certain situations in your life where you were taught to be this way, but you're not connecting to your intuition, or you're not heeding your intuition. It's almost like you feel like your intuition has to compete to prove to you that it's correct. That comes from a deep distrust of self. And that deep distrust of self is making it hard for you to define the line between what is a natural resistance of this is just plain growth, because I always say growth is uncomfortable because it puts you in a place where you've never been before, doing things you've never done before. And what is the line between that and like something that's just simply not meant for you? It causes some of you to hold on to things way longer than you were meant to hold on to it. It causes you to sort of ignore the expiration dates in your life, which keeps you sort of stagnant. It keeps you from healing certain aspects of yourself, but it also keeps you from moving forward. For others of you, it kind of keeps you stuck in this planning period all the time where it's like you see everything that you want long term, but you don't know how to get there. And it keeps you from actually taking the action to move forward, or thinking that you need more things, like you need more learning, or you need more people, or more whatever than you have in order to actually take the action forward. Ultimately, you all are going to need to build a stronger relationship with self, learn to have more self-confidence, and to trust your intuition that it's never going to steer you wrong, but actually listen to it and know what the signs of your intuition are in the first place to be able to make the choices and decisions moving forward. For a lot of you, this disconnect is happening because there's a disconnect between you and your intuition. There's a sort of like buffer between you and your higher self. You're not allowing it to come through either at all, or you are hearing it, feeling it, whatever, and ignoring it entirely and moving forward. Your intuition will always lead you in the right direction. Your intuition is usually the feeling, that gut feeling. It's almost like a knowing, but there's no way you would know the answer, but somehow miraculously you do. That's how I always explain intuition. That intuition is what's going to tell you, okay, this is something that's really good for you. You need to do it. And then you having that hesitation, that's a natural resistance. But when your intuition is like, this is wrong, this is not it, you need to leave, this is even dangerous, and you choose to ignore it, but then you continue to go anyway, and you get more and more resistance, and you think that's a normal resistance. It's not. And I think that's ultimately what the difference is the type of resistance it is, and the way that you respond and your intuition responds to that resistance. When it's something that's good for you, your intuition is going to push you towards it anyway. There's going to be sort of this knowing of like, I need to do this, I don't want to do it, or maybe I'm resistant to doing it, or maybe it's uncomfortable, but I need to do it. Whereas when something's off and their resistance is in the fact that it's not in alignment with you, your intuition is literally telling you it's off. Some of you haven't learned to hone that skill yet, which means that some of you need to slow down first. A lot of you keep trying to push towards your goals here. For a lot of you, it's financial and career, but I'm also seeing that a lot of you have the ability to be huge leaders, to be very influential, to really shape communities and create big changes in the world. That's part of why you're an old soul, and also why you have that fear of not achieving everything that you were put here to do. But because you're so focused on moving forward, some of you, instead of doing the inner work, which is ultimately what needs to happen before everything else is going to fall into place anyway, you keep just sort of pushing forward despite any of the potential obstacles, any of the resistance. It's like you're not heeding any of the signs whatsoever. And you just keep going and going because you think that if you just keep going, you keep on chiseling away at it, it's going to turn into that statue that you've always dreamed of building. That's not really the case here. Some of you need to slow down and do the spiritual work first. You need to connect, because the thing is, when you are connected spiritually, everything else falls into place. And there's not all this resistance because you're not forcing things to happen anymore. You're not having to sit there and put all the work in yourself. You're allowing the universe and your subconscious energy to work for you, instead of you having to do all the work yourself. Until you get to that point, you're not going to ever be able to reach exactly what it is you want. Because in order to have that level of influence and everything else, you have to understand people at a very fundamental level, which means you have to understand yourself at those very fundamental levels. You have to remember that if you are looking to build communities, you're looking to be influential, all these things, in order to make the impact that you want for that, you have to be able to be in a state where you are emotionally, mentally, physically ready for that. It's going to be very difficult for you to build that kind of community and have that level of impact if you don't even understand your own spiritual aspects. Because one, you're going to not have the motivation all the time, because you're not going to know what your why is, of why you're doing these things. You're not going to be able to align properly because you're not going to give yourself that time to have clarity, to reflect, and to figure out where you stand, how you're feeling, and all those things to tap into the right energies. It's always going to be this ongoing project and this ongoing fight. A lot of you, this is the problem. For those of you who really feel like you keep on having to push the boulder up the hill, and at any moment the boulder may overpower you and squash you, it's because you haven't figured out this piece of it. And it's because you need to do the spiritual work first. Now, for those of you who are struggling with this, I am going to be offering spiritual and manifestation coaching here soon. So that's something you're going to want to keep an eye out for. I'm going to be doing sessions to help people kind of like break down these different pieces of themselves so that they can move forward. But ultimately, that's what your problem is here. You're not connecting to self. You're not slowing down to give yourself that clarity and that time. With the Knight of Pentacles being on the end here, which has to do with consistent, long-term building of your goals to reach your long-term goals. This is like something that's not an instant gratification. This is going to be of long-term benefit. The benefit and long-term thing that you need is a deeper spiritual connection to self, a deeper understanding of self, a stronger self-confidence, learning where you self-sabotage yourself. Because ultimately, the person who sabotages you the most is not the people you surround yourself with. It's not your family or your boyfriend or your this or your that. It's you. When you take ownership for that and you take accountability for that, it gives you so much power, because then you are able to make the changes that you need in order to align to a better version of yourself. It allows you to tap into more of your power that you had all along and didn't realize that you had. So if you really, really want to move forward and you want to achieve all these things and you want to fulfill your purpose, all this stuff, the long-term benefit is doing the work here, now. The spiritual work, the inner work. And it's funny because when you talk to a lot of very successful people or you listen to their books and things like that, a lot of them will tell you you have to do the inner work first. Until you do the inner work, everything else is not going to fall into place. It doesn't mean that you won't have successes or achievements, but it means that things are not going to be on the level that you desire until you do this inner work first. Once you do this work, like I said, everything else will fall into place, because then the universe and everything is working for you instead of you working against it and doing all of the work yourself. That's part of why you're so exhausted all the time. It's part of why a lot of you have these high highs and low lows. You haven't figured out that you have to do this work first. So I'm going to leave the reading there because I feel like I'm starting to get like lecture-y. But if this reading resonated with you, don't forget to like this video and comment your affirmation down below. Your affirmation for this reading. Actually, I feel like it's an affirmation, but it's sort of a prayer, which is, please allow me to see things differently, and I am open to receiving the guidance I need to move forward with a different energy, more self-awareness, more self-understanding, and more connection to my higher self, intuition, my guides in the universe. And as always, may your life be full of light, full of love, abundance, and gratitude. I'll see you next time.